morning. I've just finished work and I've decided to try and squeeze in a bit of gardening. I need to step back because the sun was straight in my eyes then. That was unexpected because it's basically rained every single day since I last filmed, which is why there hasn't been a video for a couple of weeks. Yeah, it's just been too wet to do anything. And actually some of the seeds that I left to germinate outside have suffered as a result, so I need to remember to try and take those in. But I'm just going to try and get a job done in my middle bed. Let me show you. So since I last filmed out here, I have set up the little obelisk. It's not a little obelisk, it's just an ordinary obelisk in this bed. And this year I'd like to orient... Oh, the dog's going to wee. This year I'd like to split this bed into two halves. So I've got two half squares, and then mix plant in each half. So that's the layout of the stakes was supposed to be the halfway point. And this is what I'm going to do some direct sowing into this evening. It's going to be a little bit of a risk because I don't think the rain is over, but I think it's time to get some carrots and some beetroots and some parsnips in, if I can. All of a sudden, it's gorgeous. Where has the sun come from? Where has it been? I've missed it. It feels good. So in this spot I'm going to sow some carrots. These are the variety Early Nantes 2, and I have some parsnips. Hollow crown. Don't lose the packet. I'm using these because they're both already open packets. I do have other varieties, but I'm not going to use them today. Ooh. And I've also got beetroot. This is Touchstone Gold, and Sanguina is the other variety. Help. So, I'm going to figure out what I want my rows to look like. My intention with this bed is not to just sow in rows, but to sort of mix things up a little bit and just see what happens. I'm still picking carrots from last year in this the wild bed next door. I've realised that I don't eat a lot of carrots, so I'm not intending on growing very many of them this year. But a few is always nice. test carrots and parsnips for the season sown, direct sown into the ground, which is already very damp. The conditions are quite humid, so as long as it doesn't just relentlessly pour with rain again, I'm quite hopeful that the current situations will be good for germination for both of those. Next up, I've got some cornflowers that I sowed last autumn and which I intended as companion plants for just wherever there's gaps, but these guys are kind of getting desperate to get out of their trays, so I'm going to pop them in here to grow alongside some of the vegetables. Another little job jobbed. My final addition to this bed today is going to be one of my parsleys. Now, I just adjust the camera. Last year I planted 4 parsley plants in the end of this bed, the weedy bed as I now call it. Excuse me. Planted 4 parsley plants in the end of what is now known as the weedy bed, and they have just done so well. They survived all winter. They didn't get killed off with the frost, although I thought they would do. I've chopped them right back several times and they've just grown back in full, so they're clearly having the time of their lives. So rather than, it's just more parsley than I can deal with, and they're getting really crowded in that bed. That bed is a disaster zone, as you know. So I just want to thin them out a bit. So I experimentally lifted one of them last time, cut it all the way back, and then transplanted it into the middle bed, which is now to my left. I'm going to take out one more and put it in this middle bed and see if it does as well there as it has done in the weedy bed. See if YouTube makes a thumbnail out of that. There are so many worms that have just come up from where I've dug the parsley out. So somebody really likes this soil. There were half a dozen of them or so on top, but they've buried themselves in a little bit while I've been busy doing other things. But it's a really good sign of good soil health here that there are so many worms. My next job is over on the potting table. I had really terrible germination from my autumn sown sweet peas, so I've still got plenty left, and I'm just going to put some more in. First I need to find a watering can so I can water the tray, and I'm still finding tree saplings everywhere. So that's done. Normally when I sow sweet peas I don't ever bother about the varieties or separating them out. I just take all of the sweet pea seeds and I mix them up in a giant potluck and I sow them. And I normally sow them into the cardboard inners from toilet roll holders, so they get sort of longer root trainers. And so there's nothing about how I'm sowing sweet peas this year that is normal for me. But we're just going to go with it and see what happens. If the worst comes to the worst, I'll go to the garden centre and buy some. This year I used a mixed packet. There are 6 varieties in here, and I've now sown absolutely every single seed. My final job, I think, for this evening is going to be to prick out and pot on these snapdragons that I sowed in September or October. They're looking pretty sad. I speculatively sowed them, thinking I would be much further along with my ornamental garden plans and I'd have loads of places to put them. That hasn't happened, but it does not mean that they deserve to be neglected. So I'm going to pop them up into individual bigger pots and hope that that gives them a new lease of life and they will have somewhere to go a little bit later in the year. To pot these up, I'm going to make a mix of general purpose compost, mixed with some perlite for drainage, and some bloodfish and bone meal. I never know how much of this stuff to put in, so just like that much of a trowel full. I think I've got 4 viable plants. That is what my potting mix looks like. Let's go and see if we can rescue some neglected snapdragons. So I salvaged 6 snapdragons in the end, although I don't know how many of them are really going to grow anymore and how many of them are just secretly dead. I have resown all the sweet peas. I've got 2 potluck pots of sweet peas, and as a gesture of goodwill I've also potted up the honesty and the California poppy, which also got sown in autumn. My cut flower sowings haven't done great this year because I have completely neglected them, quite frankly, but that's okay. Here's me with your regular reminder that there really isn't anything that has to be done right now. Everything is optional, and there's a whole load of stuff that's going on in the garden regardless of my interference or not, or yours for that matter. This is definitely a period of the year when it's really easy to think or start to be worried that you're getting behind, and you're not, so don't worry about it. And as if a reminder of how much the garden doesn't need us to overthink it, I had a check in the potato buckets that I planted last time, and we have some growth going on. Look, little potato. I think that might be another little potato. And then in the second one, just starting to pop out there. So it's all doing its magic without us. It's desperately trying to rain again, so I think this is my sign to go in. The dogs are looking ever so sad. But they are banned from the allotment because they keep digging holes and trying to eat the compost and trying to get in the pond and all kinds of really irritating things. So I'm trying to manoeuvre myself back into the house whilst holding a tripod pod and a seed tray full of seeds, because I wanted to show you something in the house. I haven't done a renovation update for a really long time, partially because there's been no update, but things are occurring, so, but not in my kitchen, obviously. I wanted to show you the seeds that I put in the propagator. So here are the seeds in the propagator tray. The propagator lights come on a 9-hour schedule. But look how well everything is germinated. I think I've got 100% germination from all the tomatoes, all 3 varieties. Basil has come up really well. And look at the asparagus. They're like beautiful and little tiny baby asparaguses and all frondy, and oh, they're just gorgeous. I think at last count there were 18, but a few others have popped up since then. So I have absolutely no idea what to do with them beyond this point. There's always so much panic about whether or not things will germinate. I never think about what is the next state. Case in point, absolutely nothing happened in the verbena. Nothing at all. So that's going to have to be redone. But yeah, super happy. And for anybody that's interested in what I do with the vegetables that I grow in my garden, here's an example. This is braised leeks. These are the leeks that I am still harvesting this year that I sowed in May last year. And they have just been braised really, really slowly on the hot plate. Not quite sure what the term for that is. Hob, we call it a hob. They've just been braised really slowly on the hob, and I am going to eat those with pasta later, like spaghetti pasta or tortellini, long stringy ones. And I absolutely cannot wait. It's a recipe that I found on the Riverford website, so I shall try to remember to pop a link to that down below.